CreepyCorner stories.
Hey everyone, welcome back to CreepyCorner stories. You know, diving into the dark web is always risky, but sharing these stories with you makes it worth it. I'm curious, where are you watching this from right now? Let me know in the comments below. I've noticed that these kinds of stories hit differently depending on where you are. It might even make the experience a little creepier. So, tell me, are you watching from the safety of your home or somewhere less secure? A dark web leak claims the US government has a backup copy of every citizen. My file was marked edited. Alright, I don't know how long this will stay up. If it disappears, you'll know why. If my account goes silent, assume the worst. I'm not here to convince anyone, just to get this out. This all started a month ago. I was scrolling through Reddit at like 2 a.m., doing the usual deep dive into weird conspiracy threads. You know the type: government surveillance, secret projects, missing people, all that fun stuff. But then I saw a post that made my stomach drop. It was on some obscure conspiracy subreddit, the kind with usernames like RedactedTruth47 and WakeUpSheeple88. The title: Every US citizen has a backup copy stored by the government. Leaked database confirms. Now, I'm not a tinfoil hat type of guy. I use Instagram. I got a TikTok addiction like everyone else. And yeah, I know the government watches us. But this was different. The post had a link to some sketchy-looking dark web forum. I normally wouldn't have clicked, but something about the comments freaked me out. One said, "If your file is marked edited, do not try to find out why. Just disappear." I should have taken the hint. I won't explain how I got into the dark web. If you know, you know. But I'll just say that after some digging, I found the link that led to an old, ugly-looking database. It was literally just a black screen with a search bar at the top. At first, I thought it was fake. There was no login page, no flashy hacker graphics, just plain text and a blinking cursor. It looked too simple to be real. I typed in John Smith. Generic name, right? A list of John Smiths popped up, each with a date of birth and a state. Next, I tried my cousin's name. He's not on social media, so I figured there'd be no results. Wrong. His full name, birth date, past addresses, even old phone numbers. All there. My hands were shaking when I typed my own name. And there it was. My full legal name. My old middle school. The cringy old Xbox gamer tag I hadn't used in years. Even my deleted Instagram accounts. But one thing was off. At the bottom of my profile, in red text, was a status. File status. Edited. I remember just staring at the screen, feeling my chest tighten. None of the other profiles I checked had that. Just mine. I clicked on it, expecting some kind of detailed log or explanation. Instead, I got an error message. Access denied. Insufficient clearance. And then, a timer appeared at the top of the screen. 0, 0, 59, 0, 0, 58. I didn't wait to see what happened when it hit 0. I slammed my laptop shut, yanked the power cord out, and sat there in silence, heart pounding. That's when I got the notification. A single email. No sender, no subject, just one sentence. You were not supposed to see that. I don't know how, but they knew. Within minutes of me searching my name, someone had reacted. I barely slept that night. Every sound outside my window made my stomach turn. Was I being watched? Had I just made the worst mistake of my life? The next morning, I decided to pretend nothing happened, went to work, scrolled through Twitter, tried to act normal, but something wasn't right. I stopped at Starbucks on the way home, ordered my usual. As I waited, I noticed the barista glancing at me a little too often, not in a, "Hey, you're cute" kind of way, more like she recognized me, but didn't know from where. Then, when she called my name for the order, she hesitated, just a split second, like she expected someone else to pick it up. I left without saying a word. That night, I made another mistake. I went back to the dark web, not to search my name, hell no, but to see if the database was still there. It wasn't. The link was dead. Instead, the forum had a new post pinned to the top. To whoever accessed the database last night, we hope it was worth it. No username, no comments, just that. I felt sick. Was that for me? No, it couldn't be. There had to be dozens, maybe hundreds of people who saw that thread. I tried to tell myself that. I really did, until I woke up to a new email. This time, it had an attachment, a single image. It was a picture of my apartment door, taken from the hallway, time-stamped 3:31 a.m. I never heard anyone outside. I never heard a single footstep, but someone had been there, watching, and that's when I knew. Whatever was in my file, someone didn't want me to know, but it was too late, because I wasn't the only one looking. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my dark apartment, laptop closed, phone on silent, heart hammering in my chest. The picture of my door, the one taken at 3:31 a.m., was still on my screen. I kept staring at it, trying to see if there was a shadow, a hint of movement, something in the reflection, but there was nothing. Just my door, my own damn door. The worst part? I lived on the 3rd floor of an apartment building with a locked front entrance and security cameras in the hallways. There was no way someone could have just wandered up, taken that picture, and left without me ever hearing a thing. I needed answers. At 6 a.m., I did something stupid. I walked out of my apartment and checked the hallway, half expecting to see someone standing there, watching me. But it was empty. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The air smelled like old carpet and burnt coffee, just like always. I turned toward the security camera at the end of the hall. That's when I noticed it. The red recording light was off. I felt my stomach drop. That camera was always on. My landlord was obsessive about it after someone got their bike stolen last year. There was no way in hell he would have turned it off. I ran downstairs to the lobby, ignoring the weird look from my neighbor taking out his trash. When I got to the building's front entrance, I checked the security camera above the door. Office. Someone had disabled every single camera, and whoever did it was the same person who had been outside my apartment last night. I went to work like normal, trying to ignore the gnawing sense of unease in my gut. My boss asked me why I looked like I hadn't slept. I made up some excuse about food poisoning. I wasn't about to explain that I spent the night staring at a photo someone took while standing inches from my front door. During lunch, I checked my emails. The picture was still there, sitting in my inbox like a ticking time bomb. No subject, no sender, just that one image. I hovered my mouse over it, debating whether to delete it or forward it to someone. But who the hell would I even send it to? The police? What would I even say? Hey, someone sent me a creepy photo of my own door. Do something about it. They'd laugh me out of the station. I shut my laptop. That's when I felt it. That awful creeping sensation, like I was being watched. I looked around the office. My co-workers were either eating at their desks or chatting by the water cooler. Everything looked normal. but my skin crawled. Then I saw him, a man in a grey hoodie, sitting at a table outside the building, staring directly at me through the window. He didn't move. He didn't even blink. He just sat there, watching me through the glass, like he had been there the whole time. Something about him felt wrong, not just in a creepy guy staring at me way, but in a this person shouldn't exist way. Like he wasn't actually seeing me, more like he was studying me. I stood up, my hands clammy. The moment I moved, he tilted his head, not like a curious dog, more like something trying to mimic human behavior, but getting it slightly wrong. I turned to grab my phone. Less than 2 seconds. When I looked back, he was gone. Not walking away gone, just gone. No sign of him. The sidewalk was empty. There was no way in hell he could have moved that fast. I stepped outside, scanning the street. Nothing. Just the usual lunch rush. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Looking for me? I felt ice spread through my veins. I didn't reply. I just turned and walked straight back inside, locking myself in the office bathroom. My breathing was shaky. My hands trembled as I stared at my reflection in the mirror. What the hell was happening? I took the rest of the day off. Told my boss I wasn't feeling well. I don't even remember driving home. My mind was in a fog, my body on autopilot. By the time I got to my apartment door, I was exhausted. My fingers fumbled with my keys. I wanted nothing more than to go inside, lock the door, and pretend none of this was real. Then I saw it. A yellow sticky note pressed against my door. 4 words, scrawled in thin, shaky handwriting. We fixed your file. I nearly dropped my keys. My entire body went cold. I ripped the note off the door, heart pounding. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold it. The ink was smudged, like whoever wrote it was in a hurry. I looked around the hallway. Empty. The cameras were still off. I knew I shouldn't go inside. Every instinct was screaming at me to run, but I didn't. I turned the key and stepped inside. The second I did, I knew someone had been there. The air felt wrong, stale, almost heavy. My apartment looked the same, but something was off. I couldn't explain it, but I could feel it. I checked every room, every closet, even under the bed. Nothing. Then I noticed my laptop. It was open and turned on. I know for a fact I shut it before leaving for work. The screen was frozen on a login page I'd never seen before. Just a black background with a single message in white text. Welcome back. We've made adjustments. I slammed the laptop shut and backed away like it was a bomb. My pulse was racing. My ears were ringing. I couldn't breathe. I grabbed my keys and bolted out of my apartment, not even bothering to lock the door behind me. I didn't stop driving until I was 2 towns over, and that's when I saw the final message. A single notification on my phone from an unknown sender with another attachment. I hesitated before opening it. My hands felt numb. When I finally clicked it, I almost threw up. It was me, a picture of me, asleep in my own bed, taken from inside my apartment. Time stamped 4:44 a.m. I was done. I shut off my phone and kept driving. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew one thing. Whoever edited my file wasn't finished with me yet. I kept driving. I didn't know where I was going, and I didn't care. I just needed to get away. From my apartment, from my job, from the messages, from the thing that had taken a picture of me while I was asleep. But the problem with running, you don't know what's waiting for you when you stop. Somewhere around 2 a.m., I pulled into a rundown motel off the highway, the kind of place where the clerk doesn't ask questions and the parking lot smells like piss and cigarettes. The neon sign outside flickered, vacancy, buzzing like it was barely holding on to life. I paid in cash, no name, no ID. I wasn't taking any chances. The clerk, an old guy with skin like dried leather, barely looked up as he handed me the key. "Don't make a mess," he muttered. I didn't respond, just took the key and walked down the dimly lit hallway to room 107. The room smelled like mildew and something faintly metallic, the kind of smell that never really goes away, no matter how much bleach you use. The bed was covered in a floral patterned blanket, the kind that probably hadn't been washed in years. There was an old box TV in the corner, unplugged, a single window with the yellowed blinds. I locked the door, twice. Then I shoved a chair under the doorknob, for good measure. I sat on the bed, trying to catch my breath, my hands still shaking from the drive. My phone was still off. I was too scared to turn it back on, because I knew there'd be another message waiting for me, and I wasn't ready to see it. I must have passed out at some point, because the next thing I remember is waking up to knocking. 3 knocks, slow, deliberate. I shot up so fast my vision blurred. The room was still dark, but something was wrong. The air felt too still. Then I saw it, the doorknob. It was turning, not shaking, not rattling, just slowly turning, testing, checking. The chair under the knob creaked, barely holding in place. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just sat there, frozen, watching the doorknob twist back and forth, like whoever was on the other side was deciding whether or not to push harder. Then, they stopped. Silence. I wanted to believe it was over, that whoever was outside had given up. Then something slid under the door. A piece of paper, number A Polaroid. I didn't want to pick it up. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to leave it there, to pretend I never saw it. But I had to look. With shaking hands, I picked it up. My stomach dropped. It was a picture of me, but not from tonight. It was from when I was 7 years old. I recognized it instantly. The old backyard of my childhood home, my Spider-Man t-shirt, the missing front tooth. It was a photo that should not exist, one that had never been taken, because I was alone that day. I remembered it clearly. My parents were inside. I had been playing with my toy cars in the dirt, making little roads with my hands. There was no one there to take a picture, and yet, here it was, proof that someone had been watching me since I was a child. I dropped the photo like it burned me. Then, a whisper, right outside my door. Not a voice, not words, just breathing. Long, slow, ragged breaths. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. The breathing continued, louder, closer. Then, something pressed against the door. Not a fist, a face. I could see the outline through the peephole, the curve of a forehead, a nose, a mouth slightly open. Whoever it was, they were leaning their entire face against the door, just listening, waiting. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. And then, they started laughing, low, choking, wrong. It didn't sound like a real laugh. It sounded practiced, like someone trying to mimic human laughter, but failing. Then, the laughing stopped, and they said something that nearly made me pass out right there. "We fixed your file, but you don't belong in it anymore." The air left my lungs, and then they knocked again. But this time, it wasn't 3 knocks. It was my childhood knock, the same pattern I used when I was a kid, the one I made up with my best friend so we'd know it was each other at the door. A pattern no one else could possibly know. I almost screamed. Then, footsteps. Slow. Dragging. Moving away from the door. I sat there for what felt like hours, shaking, gripping the blanket like it was the only thing keeping me grounded in reality. Eventually, the sun started to rise, and the hallway outside the door fell silent. I forced myself to stand up. My legs felt like jelly. When I finally got the courage to look out the peephole, there was no one there, but something was. Another Polaroid, taped to the door. My fingers felt numb as I peeled it off. I looked at the image, and my entire body went cold. It was a picture of my motel room, from inside, taken from the corner, while I was sleeping. And in the photo, there was someone standing over me. Their face was blurred, wrong, like it didn't belong to them, like it wasn't real. I don't remember leaving the motel. I don't remember running to my car, starting the engine with shaking hands, my vision blurred with panic. But somehow, I ended up back on the highway, driving toward a place I never thought I'd have to go. Back home, back to where it all started. Because if someone has been watching me since I was a child, then maybe, just maybe, I was never supposed to exist in the first place. I drove for hours, barely blinking, my grip so tight on the wheel, my knuckles turned white. My body felt numb, like I wasn't really in it anymore, like I was watching myself from the outside. The Polaroid sat on the passenger seat, mocking me. The image of my motel room, the figure standing over me, whoever or whatever it was, their face was blurred, like a corrupted file, like they weren't meant to be seen. I should have thrown it out, burned it, but I couldn't, because deep down, I knew something. This wasn't just about someone watching me. It wasn't just about my file being edited. It was about me, about what I was, and I was about to find out the truth. By the time I reached my childhood home, it was almost 4 a.m. It looked smaller than I remembered. The porch paint was peeling. The windows were dark. The house sat at the end of a dead-end street, surrounded by nothing but dense trees. I killed the engine and sat there in silence, staring at the house I hadn't seen in over a decade. My parents had moved out years ago. It had been sold, resold, and left empty since the last owner vanished under unexplained circumstances. I never told anyone, but I already knew what happened, because I wasn't the first person this had happened to. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. The cold night air bit into my skin. The sound of crickets filled the empty street. Then, a soft creak. The front door was already open. Number not just open, unlocked, like someone was expecting me. I stepped inside. The air smelled stale. Dust coated the wooden floorboards. The walls were the same pale yellow I remembered, cracked with age. I closed the door behind me. The sound echoed through the house. Silence. Then, a faint humming, coming from upstairs. A woman's voice, software familiar. My mother's. I nearly fell backward. That was impossible. She had moved across the country. I hadn't spoken to her in years, but the humming continued, drifting down the stairs, filling the house like a ghost of my childhood. It was the same lullaby she used to sing to me as a kid, and I did something stupid. I called out, "Mom?" The humming stopped. The air felt thick, wrong. Then, footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming down the stairs. I held my breath. My whole body was frozen. And then I saw her, my mother. But it wasn't her. Something was wrong. Her face was too smooth, too perfect, like a wax figure. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused, like she wasn't actually seeing me. But the worst part, she didn't have a mouth, just smooth, unbroken skin where her lips should have been. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over myself. My chest tightened. My heart pounded against my ribs. Then she spoke, but not with her mouth. Her voice came from somewhere behind me. "Sweetheart, you shouldn't have come back." I bolted. I ran out of that house faster than I ever had in my life. My legs screamed, my lungs burned, but I did not stop. I could still hear her voice, coming from every direction surrounding me. "You don't belong here. You don't belong anywhere. You were never supposed to exist." I dove into my car, hands shaking as I jammed the key into the ignition. The moment the headlights flashed on, she was standing right in front of the car. My not mother. Her head tilted, too far to the side, like a broken mannequin. Her body twitched, jerky and unnatural, like a puppet with tangled strings. Then she smiled, even though she had no mouth. And I saw it, the skin where her lips should have been splitting open, slowly, peeling back, revealing rows of teeth. Not human teeth. Too many teeth. Some jagged, some smooth, some too large for her mouth, some too small. All of them grinning at me. I screamed. I slammed my foot on the gas. The car lurched forward. For a split second, I thought I hit her. But the moment my headlights flickered, she was gone. Not knocked over, not running away, just gone, like she had never been there at all. I drove blindly for miles, my mind spiraling, my hands gripping the wheel so tight I thought my bones would snap. I don't remember how long I drove, maybe hours, maybe days, but when I finally stopped, I wasn't in my car anymore. I was standing in a room, a cold, white room. My wrists and ankles were strapped to a chair. My head was heavy. My body felt wrong. There were screens in front of me, playing footage of my life, birth, childhood, school, work, all of it. And then, the footage glitched, frames skipped, distorted. I watched as I disappeared from my own life. In the footage, my mother gave birth to nothing. My childhood bedroom was empty. My school photos, I wasn't in them. My co-workers, my friends, my family, they were talking to someone who wasn't there. Like I had been edited out, like I had never been real. Then, a voice, low, mechanical. "You were a mistake." The screens flickered, and I saw something, a second version of me, standing behind the glass, smiling, watching, and then everything went black. I woke up in darkness, not the kind of darkness you get when you close your eyes, not the comfortable, familiar dark of a room with the lights off. This was absolute, a void, a space where light had never existed, and I wasn't alone. I couldn't see them, but I could feel them, shapes shifting in the blackness, thin, stretched out bodies, too many joints, movements that didn't make sense, fluid and broken all at once. They surrounded me, whispering in voices I recognized. My mother, my father, my childhood best friend, my old boss, all speaking in perfect unison, like a chorus of fractured memories. "We fixed it. You don't have to run anymore. You were never supposed to exist." I tried to move, but my body wasn't mine anymore. I had arms, legs, fingers, but they weren't real. They were something else, something constructed. I was a copy, a patchwork of what I had been. And then, in front of me, a screen flickered on, a small old CRT monitor floating in the darkness, playing something, a video of me, but not me, a version of me that had never made mistakes, that had never questioned anything, a better version. This other me was living my life perfectly, smiling in photos, talking to my friends, working my job, dating someone I had never met. He looked happy. He looked right. And that's when I understood. They had replaced me. The new me was smoother, cleaner, perfect. A version that didn't ask questions. A version that belonged. You don't have to fight anymore, the voices whispered. Let go. We fixed it. And for a moment, just a moment, I almost did. I felt my mind unraveling, my memories dissolving, being rewritten into something that wasn't me. And then, I heard it. A sound. A single sound, cutting through the void like a crack in glass. A knock. 3 knocks. A pattern I knew. My childhood knock. It shouldn't have meant anything. It was just a sound. But it did something to me. It snapped something back into place. I remembered. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't going to let them erase me. I fought. I don't know how, but I fought. I tore myself away from the voices, from the whispers, from the false memories trying to overwrite my own. I ran, even though there was nowhere to go. I ran through the dark, past the things that watched me, past the better version of me smiling through the screen. And then, the darkness split open. Light poured in, and I woke up. I was in my car, parked in front of my childhood home. The engine was off. The sun was rising. I gasped for air, gripping the wheel so tight my fingernails dug into my palms. I was real. I was here. But something was wrong. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no messages, nothing. Like no one had ever tried to reach me. I opened my wallet. My ID was missing. Instead, there was a single folded note. I pulled it out with shaking hands and opened it. Only 4 words. You don't exist anymore. My body went cold. I turned on my phone, opened my contacts, scrolled through the names. Every single number was there, but none of them looked familiar. Not my parents, not my friends, not my coworkers. All the names were wrong, like someone had rewritten my life. I went to my Instagram, same account, same profile picture, but every post was different. New photos, new people, new places I had never been. It was still my face, but it wasn't me. I checked my email. Nothing. Not even old messages. Completely empty. It was like I had never existed at all. Like I had been swapped out, replaced, edited. I started driving. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew one thing. I wasn't supposed to be here, because somewhere out there, the real version of my life was still happening, and I was just a glitch they hadn't erased yet. I don't know how long I have. I don't know if I can fix this, but if you're reading this, check your file, and if it says edited, run. A dark web leak claims that every large city has a sealed underground level. The last person who found one didn't come back. Alright, so I don't even know where to start with this. I wasn't going to post anything, but after what I saw, what I heard, I feel like I have to. If anything happens to me, at least someone will have a record of this. So, here's the deal. I've always been into weird internet rabbit holes, not just like conspiracy theories and abandoned websites, but the real creepy stuff. The kind of things you find on those shady forums where everyone has some 4chan tier username and talks in half-coded messages. Most of it's fake. Urban legends, lost media, whatever. But sometimes you come across something that feels real, like it wasn't meant to be seen. This all started a couple of weeks ago when I stumbled onto a thread on a deep web forum. Not gonna say which one, because honestly, I don't want anyone going there. The post was simple, just a single sentence. Every major city has a sealed underground level. The last person who found one never came back. And then there was a link. I don't know why I clicked it. Curiosity, boredom, I don't know. The site it took me to was old school, like early 2000s style HTML with a black background and red text. At the top, there was a headline, "Leaked documents from below." Underneath that, there were a bunch of file names, PDFs, images, a few audio clips. I started clicking through them, and that's when things got weird. The PDFs were scans of what looked like official government documents. Some were blueprints of underground tunnels, maintenance shafts, and sealed access points in cities like New York, Chicago, Tokyo, London, pretty much every major city. But the weirdest part, they all had massive redacted zones, big black bars covering whole sections, sometimes even over entire pages. Then there were the images. Most of them were grainy, taken in dimly lit spaces, long empty hallways, rusted doors with no handles, warning signs in different languages, stuff like that. One of them showed what looked like a train station, but the tracks were completely rusted over, like no train had run through there in decades. And right in the middle of the platform, a single shoe. That's when I clicked on the audio files. The first one was just static for a while. Then, about 40 seconds in, there was this distant banging noise, metal on metal, like someone was slamming against a door. Then a voice, a guy's voice, whispering. I could barely make it out, but he kept repeating the same thing over and over. "They're under us. They're under us. Don't go down." Then this horrible, sharp screeching sound, like a microphone getting ripped away, and the file just cut off. I don't know why, but I felt sick listening to it, like my brain was trying to tell me to stop, but I didn't. I opened the last audio file. This one was different. It was longer, maybe 5 minutes. It started with what sounded like footsteps, slow, echoing, like someone was walking down a concrete tunnel. Then a voice, but not the same guy from before. This one sounded wrong, distorted, like it was being played through an old tape recorder that had been warped by heat or something. It said one word, "Welcome," then silence. I sat there for a long time, just staring at my screen. Something about that voice, it didn't sound human. Or if it was, it wasn't anymore. That's when my screen flickered, like full-on glitched out for a second. And then, just for a fraction of a second, there was a new image on my screen. I didn't even get a good look before my whole browser crashed, but I swear to God, I saw an eye, just one, wide open, bloodshot, staring right at me. I immediately shut my laptop. My hands were shaking. I don't know if it was just paranoia or something else, but I felt like I was being watched, like there was something just beyond my screen, staring back at me. I told myself it was nothing, just some deep web creepypasta. But then, this is where it gets bad. I started noticing things. My Wi-Fi started acting weird, cutting out at random times. My phone started buzzing with unknown numbers, always at weird hours, 2 a.m., 3:33 a.m. No messages, no voicemails, just dead silence when I answered. And then, 2 nights ago, I was at McDonald's with a friend, just chilling, scrolling through my phone, when I saw them. 2 guys in black suits, sitting a couple of booths over, not eating, not talking, just watching me. I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But then, as I got up to throw my trash away, one of them did something that made my stomach drop. He pulled out a phone, raised it to his ear, and in a voice identical to the one in the lost audio file, he said, "Welcome." I got out of there so fast, I don't even remember driving home. I don't know what I found on that site. I don't know if it was real or some elaborate hoax, but I can tell you one thing. Whoever was in that McDonald's knew I had seen it, and I think they're watching me now. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that eye from the deep web leak, that single, bloodshot eye staring through my screen like it could see straight into me. And worse, the voice, that inhuman voice that spoke through the man at McDonald's, the way he said it. Welcome. It wasn't just a word. It was a statement, an invitation, a warning. By 4 a.m., I was sitting on my couch, all the lights on, just staring at my front door, half expecting someone to knock, or worse, to hear my doorknob turn. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was freaking myself out over nothing. But then my phone buzzed. Not a call, not a message, just a notification. Unknown number sent you an airdrop. I stared at it. My breath caught in my throat. I don't have airdrop on. I never use it. But there it was on my lock screen. A request from someone nearby. I almost declined it. Almost just shut my phone off and ignored it. But my curiosity, my stupid curiosity, got the better of me. I accepted. The file was a video, just a few seconds long. No title, just a blank screen before it started playing. The first thing I saw was a hallway, dimly lit, concrete walls, flickering fluorescent lights overhead. The camera was shaking, moving fast, like someone was running while recording. Heavy breathing, a voice whispering, panicked. Then the camera jerked to the right, and I saw it. A door, a massive, rusted metal door, bolted shut, covered in warning signs. Some were in English, some in languages I didn't recognize, but the symbols were all the same. Danger, biohazard, do not enter. And then, just as the camera got close, just as the person recording reached out, something slammed against the other side. Loud, violent, a full-body impact, like something was trying to break through. The person recording screamed and dropped the camera. The video went black for a second, but the audio kept going. The banging didn't stop. It got faster, harder. Then the screeching started, this high-pitched, unnatural sound, like metal grinding against metal, but mixed with something else, something alive, something that was laughing. And then the audio glitched. The last frame of the video flickered on screen, and my stomach dropped, because it wasn't just the hallway anymore. It wasn't just the door. It was a face, right up against the camera. Pale, sunken skin stretched too tight over a skull, wide black eyes with no reflection, a mouth too big for its face, grinning. And then the video ended. I dropped my phone, my hands shaking, my ears were ringing, my whole body felt cold. And then, just as I was about to close my phone, another notification popped up. Unknown number sent you another airdrop. I didn't open it. I turned my phone off, threw it across the room, and sat there in silence, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Who the hell sent me that? I forced myself to breathe, forced myself to think. I hadn't been out all night. No one had been near me. That meant someone had been close enough to airdrop me a file. Someone had been watching me. I grabbed my laptop and did the only thing I could think of. I went back to the deep web, back to that forum, back to that post. But the link to the site with the files, it was gone. Not just deleted, scrubbed. Every reply, every mention of it, erased like it was never there. The only thing left was a single comment at the bottom of the thread. You saw too much. Don't go looking. I should have listened, but I didn't, because the next day I made the worst decision of my life. I tried to find one of the sealed underground levels myself. It started with research. I spent the entire morning digging through old urban exploration forums, abandoned subway maps, forgotten tunnels, anything that could lead me to one of the places from the files. I found something, a place that matched one of the blueprints I'd seen, a supposed sealed access point under an old subway station downtown, a station that had been decommissioned in the 1980s. I had to see it. So, like an idiot, I went. It was late afternoon by the time I got there. The station was fenced off, supposedly under construction, but there were no workers, no lights, just rusted out scaffolding and a "Do Not Enter" sign that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. I slipped through the gap in the fence and made my way inside. The deeper I went, the worse the air got. Thick, stale. It smelled like mold, rust, and something else. Something I couldn't place. And then I found it. The door. Just like in the video. Massive. Rusted. Bolted shut. Same warning signs. Same sense of wrongness. I should have left. I should have turned around and never looked back. But I heard something. Something on the other side of the door. Not banging. Not screeching. Whispering. I pressed my ear against the cold metal. My breath shallow. The whispers were layered, like multiple voices speaking at once. Some too deep, some too high. Some in languages I didn't understand. But underneath all of them, beneath the static, beneath the chaos, one voice stood out. The same voice from the deep web audio. "Welcome." And then, a hand slammed against the door from the other side. Not a fist, not a knock. A hand, with fingers. Too many fingers. I ran. I don't even remember getting back to my car. All I remember is the feeling of being chased, even though I never heard footsteps, never saw anyone behind me. But I felt them, right behind me, right at my back, watching. I haven't slept since, because every time I close my eyes, I hear it, that voice, that laugh. And last night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to a notification on my phone. Unknown number sent you an airdrop. Number not an airdrop. 10 separate files, all at once. And the names of the files, they were all the same. Look behind you. I haven't opened them. I don't think I ever will. But if you're reading this, if you ever see a door like the one I found, don't listen. Don't touch it. Don't go looking. Because if you do, they'll know. And they'll follow. I should have smashed my phone. I should have packed a bag and driven as far as I could. Somewhere with no cell towers, no internet, no doors leading underground. But I didn't. I just sat there, staring at my screen, at those 10 identical files. Look behind you. I didn't turn around. I sat frozen, gripping my phone so hard my fingers went numb. My heart was hammering against my ribs. My skin was cold, my mouth dry. Every instinct, every primal screaming part of me told me that if I looked, I'd see something I wasn't supposed to. I don't know how long I stayed like that. 5 minutes? An hour? But eventually, I gathered the courage to move. Not to turn around, never to turn around, but to stand, grab my keys, and get the hell out of my apartment. I got in my car and drove. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew I needed to be somewhere else, somewhere far, bright, crowded. I ended up at a 24-hour Walmart. Yeah, I know. Not exactly the safest place on earth, but at least it wasn't alone. I walked inside, grabbed an energy drink I didn't even want, and wandered around the aisles, trying to convince myself I was overreacting, that I was just tired, that my brain was playing tricks on me. Then I saw him, one of the men from McDonald's. Same black suit, same stiff posture, Same blank, unnatural expression. He was standing in the produce section, right by the bananas, staring directly at me. I froze. My stomach turned to ice. Then, at the exact same time, my phone buzzed. A single notification. Unknown number sent you an airdrop. I didn't look at it. I bolted. I ran straight for the doors, practically shoving past the old security guard near the entrance, jumped into my car, and floored it out of the parking lot. I was done. I was so done. I drove straight to my friend Mason's place. He's the only person I trust with this kind of thing. We've been through some sketchy, deep web crap before, but never anything like this. When I showed up at his apartment, I was shaking so bad I could barely explain what was happening. He let me in, handed me a beer, and told me to start from the beginning. So I did. I told him everything. The leak, the sealed doors, the video, the things banging on the other side, the hand with too many fingers, the men in suits, the airdrops, the eye. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time, just staring at me, tapping his fingers against his knee. Then he stood up, grabbed his laptop, and started typing. "I think I've seen something about this before," he muttered. I didn't have the energy to question him. I just sat there, gripping the beer can, waiting. After about 5 minutes, Mason turned the screen towards me. It was a forum post, not from the deep web, but one of those old-school conspiracy boards with a layout straight out of 2005. The title, "The Cities Beneath. The Government is Hiding Something Below Major Metro Areas." I skimmed through the post, my stomach twisting tighter with every paragraph. It wasn't just about sealed underground levels. It was about people who had gone looking for them. Urban explorers, conspiracy theorists, even former city employees. None of them had come back. The ones who did, well, they weren't the same anymore. The post linked to a handful of stories, old newspaper clippings, missing persons reports. One in particular caught my attention. A woman in Los Angeles, 1998. She had been a maintenance worker for the city subway. Her job was to inspect tunnels, look for leaks, things like that. One night, she radioed in about something strange. A door. A massive, unmarked door buried deep in an abandoned section of the tunnels. She told her supervisor she was going to check it out. She was never seen again. But here's the part that made my blood run cold. When authorities searched the tunnels, they found her radio. The last transmission. "Something is coming out." Then a scream. A horrible, warped scream. And then, static. I leaned back, my hands sweaty, my breath shaky. Mason clicked onto another article. This one was even worse. It was a security camera, still from a subway station in London, 2003. Late at night, platform completely empty. But in the far right corner of the frame, something was stepping out from the shadows. Not a person, not fully. The image was grainy, blurry, but you could make out features. The long, bony limbs, the too wide mouth, the sunken, bulging eyes, the way its head was turned completely backwards. The description under the image. Captured at 3:33 a.m. Subject exited from a service tunnel that had been sealed shut for over 40 years. Witnesses reported hearing laughter from inside before the door was opened. Subject was not apprehended. Subject was never seen again. I felt sick. "I think you found something real, man," Mason said, scrolling through more pages. "I think..." Then his laptop screen glitched. Not a normal glitch. A deep web glitch. The entire screen flickered, distorted, colors bleeding into each other. The mouse moved on its own, clicking through tabs we hadn't opened. And then, the video player launched. Not YouTube, not a saved file. Something streaming. Live. The screen was black for a few seconds. Then, the video faded in. A hallway. Dimensions concrete. Flickering lights. I stopped breathing. It was the same hallway from the airdrop video. The camera was moving. Not shaky this time. Smooth. Almost like it was being pushed forward on a cart. The view drifted down the hall. Slow. Deliberate. Then, the door. That massive, rusted door. Something was on the other side. Not banging. Not whispering. Scratching. Long, deep scrapes against the metal. The camera moved closer. The scratching stopped. Then, a pause. A long, agonizing pause. And then, from the other side of the door, a voice. Familiar. Too familiar. I felt my stomach drop into a void. Because the voice, it was mine. Let me out. And then the door started to open. The video cut to black. And the last thing on the screen before Mason's laptop shut itself off was a single line of text. You should not have looked. I grabbed my phone, shaking. The airdrops were gone. Every single file. Deleted. Mason and I sat there, completely silent. The room felt wrong. Then, outside the window, a knock. 3 slow, rhythmic knocks on the glass. I didn't move. Mason didn't move. We didn't have to, because we already knew. There was no one there. There couldn't be. Mason's apartment is on the 4th floor. There is no logical way someone could have knocked on that window. Mason's apartment is on the 4th floor. No fire escape, no balcony, just a sheer drop to the alley below. But the knocks had been real. 3 slow, deliberate taps against the glass. Mason and I sat frozen, barely breathing. My brain was trying to come up with some kind of explanation. A bird, the wind, maybe even a branch. But deep down, I knew the truth. Something was out there. Mason was the first to move. Slowly, cautiously, he stood up and stepped toward the window. He reached out, trembling fingers gripping the edge of the curtain. I wanted to stop him. I wanted to tell him, don't look. But I didn't. And then, in one quick motion, he yanked the curtain aside. The window was empty. Just the city skyline, dark buildings stretching into the night. No one standing outside. No one staring in. For a second, I let out a shaky breath. Maybe we were just losing it. Maybe the stress, the paranoia. Maybe it was all getting to our heads. Then Mason gasped. Not a normal gasp. A sharp, choked sound. I turned to him, and that's when I saw it. His reflection. Not his real reflection. The one in the window. It wasn't moving right. Mason had taken a step back, but his reflection hadn't. It just stood there, still pressed against the glass, watching. Then slowly, the mouth on the reflection began to stretch. Wider, 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 until it was nothing but a gaping black hole, teeth too sharp lining the edges, a mouth that wasn't a mouth anymore, just a void. I grabbed Mason and yanked him away. The second he moved, his reflection snapped back to normal. Just a regular mirror image, perfectly in sync. We stared at each other, terrified. That's when my phone started ringing. Unknown caller. I didn't want to answer it. I didn't even want to touch it. But my hands moved on their own. I pressed the screen against my ear. For a second, nothing. Just dead air. Then, very softly, breathing. Raspy. Wet. Wrong. I swallowed, my whole body frozen in fear. Who is this? I whispered. Silence. Then, that same distorted voice, the one from the deep web video, from the airdrops, from the hallway behind the door. Let me in. I threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and cut to static. Mason and I just sat there, shaking, not speaking, not breathing. Then, the phone started ringing again. This time, it wasn't mine. It was Mason's. Same unknown caller. He didn't answer it. He just stared at the screen, his face pale, his hands shaking. The ringing stopped. Then, a text. From my number. I see you. Mason looked at me, eyes wide. I didn't send that, I whispered. He slowly turned his phone around, showing me the screen, showing me the timestamp. The message had been sent 20 seconds ago, while my phone was still on the floor, still in pieces. That was when we heard the footsteps. Not outside, not in the hallway. Inside the apartment. They started in the kitchen, slow, careful, not like someone walking, but like someone stepping out of somewhere they weren't supposed to be. Mason grabbed a knife from the coffee table. I didn't have a weapon, but I grabbed the closest thing, an old metal lamp. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a single soft knock on Mason's bedroom door. A voice followed. My voice. Let me out. I nearly threw up. Mason gripped my arm, his face white as a corpse. We needed to get out. Now I grabbed my keys. Mason grabbed his laptop. We bolted for the door. But the second I reached for the handle, someone knocked. Not from inside the apartment, from the other side. I felt my stomach drop. Slowly, I turned my head. Mason was shaking his head, mouthing, "Don't open it!" But the knock came again. 3 slow, deliberate taps. And then, the peephole went dark. Something was covering it. A hand. A face. I didn't know. I didn't want to know. But then, a sound. A low, grating laugh. Wrong. Not human. The kind of laugh that felt like it was inside my head, inside my bones, vibrating through my teeth. I took a step back. Mason did too. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, my phone buzzed, even though it was still smashed against the wall. The screen flickered, cracked but still somehow working. A new airdrop request. No unknown number this time. No contact name at all. Just a file. Titled, Open the Door. I hit decline. I grabbed Mason's arm. We were about to bolt for the fire escape when the apartment lights suddenly cut out. We were plunged into total darkness. Then, Mason's laptop screen flickered on by itself, and a new video started playing. The same hallway, the same rusted door, the same scratching sounds. Only this time, the door wasn't closed. It was open, just a crack, a sliver of blackness beyond. And as the camera slowly pushed forward, that same voice whispered, "Let me in." Then, a face, not human, not right, twisted, grinning, and before the video cut out, it turned its head toward the camera, toward us, and it smiled. The laptop shut off, and in the total darkness of the apartment, the closet door behind us creaked open. The closet door creaked open, not fast, not a sudden jolt, slow, careful, deliberate, like something inside had been waiting. Mason and I didn't move. We couldn't. Our bodies were locked in place, our muscles frozen, as if we had been trapped in some invisible force. My breath was stuck in my throat, my heartbeat hammering so violently that I thought my ribs might snap. The darkness inside the closet wasn't normal. It wasn't the kind of darkness you see when the lights are off. It was deeper, wrong, like a hole that kept stretching inward, spiraling down into some abyss that wasn't supposed to be there. Then I heard it, shuffling, something moving inside. Then, barely above a whisper, a voice, my voice. "Let me out." That was enough. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just moved. Mason was right behind me. We tore through his apartment, past the shattered laptop screen, past the buzzing, glitching phone on the floor that wasn't supposed to be working, past the door we had locked just minutes ago. Except now, it was wide open, and beyond it, standing in the dim glow of the hallway, was me, or something that looked like me, but its head was tilted at an unnatural angle, just slightly too far to the right, like its neck had been snapped. Its eyes were wrong, unfocused, too wide, too dark, like twin pits of endless static. And it was smiling, not just a normal grin, a grotesque ear-to-ear stretch, lips curling unnaturally at the edges, as if its skin was splitting apart just to show more teeth than any human should have. And then it moved, not walking, glitching. 1 second, it was in the hallway. The next, right in front of me, I felt something cold brush against my face. Fingertips, my own. Mason screamed. I don't remember getting out. I don't remember how we got down 4 flights of stairs without breaking our necks. All I remember is running, my lungs burning, my body moving on pure instinct. The second we hit the street, my vision blurred. The world flickered, like I was inside some corrupted file, like reality itself was unstable. Then, a sound, low, scraping, from above. Mason grabbed my arm and pointed, his face pale, his mouth slightly open like he wanted to speak but couldn't. I looked up and saw them. Not one, not two, dozens. Figures in the windows of the apartment complex, some standing, some crouched, some twisted into impossible shapes, heads bent backward, joints locked at unnatural angles, their grins wide and frozen. And every single one of them had my face. They were staring, all of them. Then, the streetlights cut out. I don't remember what happened next, just flashes. Mason dragging me, car doors slamming, tires screeching against the pavement as we peeled out of the parking lot. We drove for hours, maybe even days. I don't remember stopping. I don't remember sleeping. I just remember the road stretching endlessly in front of us, like we were trapped in some looping, liminal space. Eventually we stopped at a gas station, middle of nowhere. I don't even know what state we were in. Mason didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice was hollow. We're not safe. I didn't argue. I knew he was right. We sat there for a long time, the radio playing some faint, static-filled song, the gas station's buzzing neon lights flickering above us. Then, my phone buzzed. I never turned it back on. But there it was, lying on the dashboard, screen flickering, a new notification, an audio file. I didn't want to open it. Every part of me screamed not to. But I did. Because of course, I did. For the first few seconds, silence. Then, the sound of breathing. Not mine. Not Mason's. Something else. Wet. Guttural. Wrong. And then, a whisper. You let me out. The file ended. I felt something inside me shatter. I turned to Mason, my breath coming in ragged gasps, and I saw that he was already looking at me. His hands were gripping the wheel so tight that his knuckles had gone white. We need to go off the grid, he whispered. I nodded. We abandoned our phones that night, left them in a ditch, buried under rocks and dirt. Mason got rid of his laptop too. We paid for everything in cash. We swapped out our car. We changed our names. But it wasn't enough, because they're still here. I can feel them, watching, following, flickering just at the edge of my vision. Sometimes I see them in mirrors, sometimes in windows, and sometimes, late at night, I hear knocking, not on a door, not on a window, but from somewhere underneath me. I don't know how much longer I have. I don't know if posting this will even do anything, if there's even a way out. But if you're reading this, if you ever see a door that shouldn't be there, do not open it. Because once you do, you let them out, and they don't want to go back. A hacker sent me a file called The Last Human Experiment. The subject lived without a brain for 7 days, and then he spoke. Okay, so I don't even know how to start this without sounding completely insane, but whatever. I need to get this out there before I lose my mind. A few weeks ago, I made the dumbest decision of my life. You know those deep web horror stories people always tell? The ones where someone buys a mystery box or stumbles onto a live stream they shouldn't have seen. I used to think those were just internet campfire stories. Turns out they're very real, and I might have just pissed off someone I shouldn't have. I'm not some dark web hacker or anything, just a regular guy who spends way too much time on the internet. My nights usually involve scrolling through Reddit, watching YouTube horror videos, and occasionally hopping into weird Discord servers just to see what kind of bizarre communities exist online. So when I found this private server called Red Room Archives, I was curious. The invite link was posted on some random 4chan thread, and the name sounded like some horror ARG or deep web roleplay thing. Stupid, I know, but I was bored, so I joined. The server had barely 50 people in it, and there were only 3 channels. Experiments, which was locked. Theories, where people were posting the creepiest conspiracy stuff I'd ever seen. Requests, which had people literally asking for access to the locked channel. Most of the members didn't even talk, just lurked. But the ones who did, they weren't talking about normal internet horror stuff. They were sharing actual medical files, police reports, and blurry screenshots of things that looked way too real to be fake. Things that didn't belong on the internet. That's when I made mistake number 1. I typed in the chat, "Is this some kind of ARG? If so, it's pretty well done." Instantly, I got a DM. System. User, NoFace31 has sent you a file. It was an old zip folder titled The Last Human Experiment.zip. No message, no explanation, just a file. Now, if I had any common sense, I would have just deleted it. But curiosity is a hell of a drug, and against every survival instinct in my body, I downloaded it. Inside the folder, there were 6 video files and 1 text document labeled readmefirst.txt. I opened the text file. It was just 1 sentence. Watch in order. Do not share. Do not exit before the final recording. That was it. No context. No credits. Just a warning that I really should have listened to. I clicked on the first video. It started with grainy CCTV footage of a hospital room, the kind you see in old medical experiments. White walls, fluorescent lights, a single bed in the center. Strapped to that bed was a man with no face, no eyes, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin stretched over a skull. A robotic voice, one of those old text-to-speech programs, started speaking. Subject 034, Stage 1, prefrontal removal initiated. I swear, I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't just some random horror video. It looked real. The footage was shaky, but I could see everything. The doctors in the video, if you could even call them that, weren't wearing normal medical gear. They had on gas masks and black gloves, no IDs, no insignia, just blank, expressionless masks. One of them lifted a scalpel. I don't know how to describe what I saw next without wanting to throw up. They peeled the man's forehead back like they were unzipping a jacket, exposing his skull. Another doctor, who had these weirdly long fingers, inserted some kind of thin metal rod into the exposed brain matter. The man didn't scream. He didn't move. Then, suddenly, he started laughing. Not a normal laugh. Not even a human laugh. It was this high-pitched, stuttering noise, like an old VHS tape skipping, like something was trying to imitate laughter, but didn't understand how it was supposed to sound. I paused the video. My hands were shaking. This had to be fake, right? Some elaborate internet horror project. A really well-done indie film. But something about it felt wrong. Too detailed. Too raw. The way the man's skin folded. The way his exposed brain pulsed with every movement. I clicked on the second video. This one started 7 days later. Same room. Same strapped-down man. But now, his head was completely empty. I'm not exaggerating. His skull had been hollowed out. No brain, just a dark, gaping hole where it should have been. The robotic voice returned. Stage 2. Complete. No neural activity detected. Subject remains conscious. I wanted to stop watching. I really did. But I couldn't. The man, the one with no brain, turned his head toward the camera. His faceless skin twitched. His hands strained against the restraints. Then, in the clearest, most human voice I'd ever heard, he spoke. "Are you watching?" I slammed my laptop shut so fast, I almost cracked the screen. I sat there in complete silence, my heart hammering. I didn't move for what felt like forever. Then, against my better judgment, I opened my laptop again. My mouse was moving on its own. It hovered over the next video file, then clicked it. That's when my webcam turned on, and I swear to God, I heard breathing right behind me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I sat there staring at my laptop screen, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. The webcam light was still on. The mouse, my mouse, wasn't mine anymore. It was moving on its own, gliding with this eerie mechanical precision. The cursor hovered over the next video file in the folder, and then, without me touching anything, it clicked. The third video opened. Video log 3, day 8. The man with no brain was still alive. He was sitting up now, unrestrained. His skin, smooth, faceless, twitched in unnatural spasms, like something beneath it was trying to push its way out. The hole in his skull, where his brain used to be, was black. Not empty, black. A void. A space where light just stopped existing. He was staring, right at the camera. And then he did something that shouldn't have been possible. He smiled. No mouth, no lips. Just his skin stretching, splitting, tearing open into a wide, jagged grin, like meat being peeled apart by invisible hooks. His teeth weren't human. They weren't even teeth. Just rows of tiny finger-like bones, twitching and flexing like they were waving at me. Then the robotic voice returned. Stage 3. Subject exhibits awareness beyond biological limits. The man stood up. The doctors, the ones in their featureless gas masks, stepped back. One of them, tall, with unnaturally long arms, slowly reached into a metal tray and picked up a scalpel. I could hear his gloves creak as he tightened his grip around the handle. Then, for the first time, one of the doctors spoke, but his voice wasn't real. It was a chorus, a distorted, overlapping mess of different voices, men, women, children, all speaking at once. Some were whispering, some were screaming. The flesh remembers. The body does not forget. Even without the brain, we are whole. The man with no brain laughed. That same, skipping, wrong laughter from before. It echoed in my speakers, growing louder, overlapping, until it wasn't laughter anymore. It was screaming. And then, suddenly, the screaming stopped. Silence. The doctor with the scalpel took another step forward. The others followed. They moved in unison, their heads tilting at the exact same time, like they were part of some hive mind. Then, in one swift movement, the long-armed doctor plunged the scalpel into the man's chest. But he didn't bleed. The skin peeled back like it was made of wax, curling outward, revealing something moving underneath. Not organs, not muscle. Something black. The same void that filled his skull was inside his body, and it was spreading. The doctors stepped back. For the first time, they looked afraid. The man with no brain tilted his head. His grin widened. Then, without warning, the footage glitched. For exactly 4.3 seconds, the screen went black. When it came back, the man was standing behind the doctors. He was touching them, and where he touched them, their suits began to rot. No, not rot. Age. The material withered, turning yellow and brittle, like it had been left in the sun for centuries. Their gloves crumbled to dust. Their exposed skin, pale, veiny, unnatural, began to sink inward, shriveling, until their bones snapped and they collapsed into themselves, like marionettes with their strings cut. I wanted to stop watching. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move, because I could still hear it, the breathing, right behind. My body locked up. Every instinct in me screamed to run, to bolt out of my room and never look back, but I couldn't. I was frozen, trapped. My fingers were ice cold against my keyboard, my skin tingling like static. And then, my webcam feed popped up on the screen. There was someone behind me. Not someone. Something. It was standing in my doorway, half hidden in the shadows. A tall, lanky figure with limbs that were just a little too long, a head that was just a little too tilted. I couldn't see its face, but I could see its hands. They were moving, not shaking, not twitching, but moving, jerking in sharp, unnatural angles, like it was trying to mimic typing, mimic me. My screen glitched. The video file closed. My mouse moved on its own again, hovering over the next file. I yanked the power cable out of my laptop. The screen went black. My room was dead silent. And that's when I realized something that made my stomach drop. The breathing hadn't stopped. I wasn't alone. I ran. I don't remember grabbing my keys or shoving my feet into my sneakers. I don't even remember throwing open the front door. I just remember the feeling of cold air hitting my face as I sprinted into the night, my chest heaving, my pulse hammering. I didn't stop running until I was 3 blocks away. I turned around. My house was completely dark, but in the upstairs window, my window, I saw a shadow, standing perfectly still, watching me. And then, just as I blinked, it waved. That was 48 hours ago. I haven't been home since. I've been sitting in this 24-hour Starbucks, trying to process what the hell I saw, what the hell I did. But no matter how much I try to tell myself, it was just some elaborate deep web trick, some sick psychological horror project. I know the truth. I brought something back with me, and I think it's still watching. I haven't slept. I don't even know how long I've been awake at this point. 48 hours? 72? More? Time feels wrong. It doesn't move normally anymore. Every second stretches too long, like I'm stuck in some kind of lagging reality. The edges of my vision blur sometimes, and when I blink, I see things that shouldn't be there. I don't know if it's sleep deprivation, or if I'm becoming like him. I've been sitting in the same Starbucks for hours. My laptop is dead. My phone is at 4%, and I'm too afraid to ask for a charger because I can't let myself talk to anyone. Can't risk it knowing where I am. But I already know the truth. It already knows. I can still feel its eyes. Every time I glance at the window, I see movement. Not people walking by, not traffic, something else. A shape, tall, bent, watching. And then, when I focus, it's gone. But it's there. It's always there. I haven't gone back home. I can't. But it doesn't matter anymore. Because last night, I made a mistake. I opened my laptop again. I had to know. I don't remember making the decision. My hands just did it. I dug my laptop out of my backpack, plugged it into the Starbucks outlet, and pressed the power button before I could stop myself. The moment the screen flickered on, the file was already open. Video log 4, day 9. The screen was pitch black for a few seconds, but I could hear something, a wet, gurgling sound, like something being peeled apart. Then, the image snapped into focus, and I stopped breathing. The doctors, the ones in gas masks, were gone. Or no, they weren't gone. They were on the walls. They had been stapled there. Their limbs were bent at impossible angles, arms and legs folded backward like broken puppets. Their torsos were split open like gaping mouths, their ribs jagged and cracked outward. Something was moving inside them, something black, something that twitched, and in the middle of the room he was standing, the man with no brain, but he wasn't strapped to the bed anymore. He was taller. His body had stretched, his arms hanging too low, his fingers long and thin as needles. His grin, his horrible, unnatural grin, was wider now, stretching from ear to ear, even though he had no ears. His head slowly tilted, and then, in that same clear human voice, he spoke. "Come closer." The camera lurched forward, not like someone had stepped closer, like it had been dragged. The frame shook violently, the edges blurring, distorting, until it was right in front of him. That black void in his skull pulsed, like it was breathing. Then, he reached out. His fingers touched the camera lens, and everything stopped. The screen went black. For exactly 10 seconds, there was nothing. No sound, no movement, just a dead, empty screen. And then, my webcam turned on. My own face appeared on the screen. My reflection, my tired, shaking, exhausted face. I barely had time to register what I was looking at before, behind me, in the reflection. I saw him, standing right there, behind. His skin was pale. His grin was unnatural. His hollow skull loomed over my shoulder, like he was whispering into my ear. I slammed the laptop shut, and the lights in Starbucks went out. All of them. The whole place plunged into darkness. A few people gasped. Someone dropped a drink. The sound of shuffling feet, chairs scraping against the floor. Confused voices, murmurs, a distant, "What the hell?" But I didn't move, because I could feel it. The air changed, grew heavy, cold, like something else was in the room now. And then, the whispering started. "He is watching. He is watching. He is watching." Not from a speaker, not from a phone, from inside my own head. I grabbed my bag and ran. Didn't say anything, didn't look back, just sprinted into the night, my heart slamming against my ribs so hard I thought it was going to burst. I ran until my legs gave out. I collapsed in some alleyway behind a 24-hour McDonald's, just laid there on the cold pavement, gasping for air, feeling the burn of bile rising in my throat. And then, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the entrance of the alley. I forced myself to look. A man stood there. Not him. Not the faceless thing. Just a regular man. Hoodie, jeans, hands in his pockets. But his face. Something was wrong. It looked too smooth. Too blank. Like it was trying to be human, but had forgotten something. Then, in my own voice, He spoke. You shouldn't have watched. I stopped breathing. The man's head twitched. His neck cracked sideways, jerking like a puppet with cut strings. Then his mouth stretched open, far, too far, until it was just a black, gaping hole. And out of that hole, I heard my own voice. You shouldn't have watched. You shouldn't have watched. You shouldn't have watched. I scrambled backward, crawling on my hands and knees, my brain screaming at my body to move. And then, the McDonald's sign flickered, the neon lights buzzed, and just like that, he was gone, like he'd never been there at all. But I know the truth. It's not over. I brought something back with me, and now, it's inside me. I don't know how much longer I can fight this. Something is wrong with me. I haven't slept in days, but I don't feel tired anymore. I don't feel anything. Not hunger, not pain, not warmth. It's like my body isn't mine anymore. Like I'm just borrowing it, waiting for something else to take over. Or maybe it already has. The whispers haven't stopped. They don't come from outside. They come from inside my head. They crawl under my skin like parasites, burrowing deep into my thoughts, replacing my own voice with theirs. They tell me things, horrible things. And worst of all, I think I'm starting to like it. I don't know why I came back to my apartment. Maybe some stupid part of me thought locking the door would keep it out, like it wasn't already inside. I barely recognize this place anymore. It smells wrong, like metal and decay. My bed is untouched. The dishes in the sink are still where I left them. But the walls aren't mine. There's something underneath the paint, like veins running through the drywall. Thin black roots that pulse if I stare too long. I swear they weren't there before. But now, when I press my ear against them, I hear breathing. The apartment is alive. Or maybe it's watching me. I don't turn on the lights anymore. I can't risk looking in a mirror. Not after what happened in the bathroom last night. Last night, 3:33 a.m., I heard the faucet running, but I hadn't turned it on. The sound pulled me out of the half sleep I'd been drifting in, that state where your body is exhausted, but your mind is awake. I lay there for a moment, heart hammering, listening to the steady drip, drip, drip coming from the bathroom. Then the whispering started. Let us see. Let us out. Let us be you. I felt something shift inside my skull, like hands crawling along the inside of my skin. I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to look. But my body wasn't mine anymore. I stood up, walked to the bathroom. The air was thick, heavy. It smelled like rotting meat. The sink was still running, but the water wasn't clear. It was black, thick, inky liquid, swirling down the drain, moving too slow, too alive, like it was waiting for something. I reached for the faucet, but before I could turn it off, the mirror changed. I didn't see my reflection. I saw him, the man with no brain. He was behind me, grinning, wide. His mouth stretched too far, too jagged, too unnatural. His skin peeled, curling at the edges like burnt paper, revealing something crawling underneath. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then he raised his hand, and so did I, at the exact same time, like a puppet. My fingers trembled as I touched my face. My skin felt wrong, too smooth, like I was forgetting something important. I tried to scream, tried to break free, but then I saw what was behind his grin, the void, the empty space where his brain should have been. It was inside me, too, a black, pulsing abyss, eating through my flesh, hollowing me out, turning me into something else. I dug my fingers into my skin, trying to feel the shape of my face, my eyes, my mouth. but there was nothing there. No lips, no nose, no eyes, just skin, just emptiness. Then the whispering stopped, and he spoke. Now we are one. The light flickered, and when it came back, I was alone. I stumbled back, gasping, my hands flying to my face. It was still there. My eyes, my nose, my mouth. But for those few seconds, I swear I had felt nothing. Nothing at all. Now, 4:12 M. I don't know how much longer I have. It's getting harder to tell where I end and where it begins. My hands shake when I try to hold on to anything. Sometimes I look at my reflection, and it's not me staring back. It's him, grinning, waiting. Something is coming. Something is almost here. I can feel it, deep inside me, stretching through my veins, crawling toward my brain like a parasite, looking for a new home. And I don't think I can stop it. I don't even think I want to. The final video. I don't remember opening my laptop again, but when I looked down, the last video file was playing. Video log 5, final recording. The screen was black. For a long time, nothing happened. Then, the sound of wet footsteps, dripping, slow, getting closer. Then a voice. My voice. Are you watching? The screen glitched, and suddenly, I was on the screen. It was me, sitting in my chair, right now, wearing the same clothes, my hands on my keyboard, staring at the camera. But something was wrong. The longer I looked, the more I saw it. My skin twitching, moving, like something was crawling underneath. My fingers flexing, too long, too sharp. And then, my reflection smiled. Not a normal smile. His smile. Now you say. The screen cut to black. My laptop shut itself off, and I felt it, for the first time. A hand on my shoulder. It wasn't behind me. It was inside me, moving, shaping, changing me. And as I stared at my reflection in the dark screen of my laptop, I saw what I had become. The last human experiment. I don't know how to explain what happened next. I remember sitting there, staring at my laptop screen, but it wasn't a screen anymore. It was a mirror, and in that mirror, I saw something that was no longer me. My skin had started to stretch, not sagging, not wrinkling, stretching, like something underneath was pulling it in all the wrong directions. My jaw hung too loose, my fingers had too many joints, and my eyes weren't there anymore. I still had eye sockets, but inside them, where there should have been pupils, irises, sclera, there was only blackness, a deep, hollow void that pulsed like a second heartbeat. And worst of all, I could feel something watching me from inside it, something that wasn't me, something using me. And then the whispering started again. Now you see. Now you understand. The body is just a door. My head snapped backward. I didn't mean to do it. My neck cracked loudly, vertebrae popping like someone twisting a mannequin's head too far. I tried to move, to stop whatever was happening, but I had no control anymore. My fingers dug into my own skin. I wasn't doing it. They just moved, like marionette strings had tightened around my tendons. And then slowly, my fingernails began to peel my face away. The skin lifted like paper burning at the edges, curling, revealing something underneath that wasn't muscle, wasn't bone. It was him. I saw his grin underneath my own skin, his hollow, empty skull staring back at me. I tried to scream, but my lips were already gone. The void spread, and then I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I was inside it, the facility. The room was too white, blinding, perfect, like a place not meant for human eyes. I was strapped down, arms, legs, chest, neck. Something cold and metallic wrapped around me, pinning me to a surface that wasn't a table, wasn't a floor. It was alive. I could feel it breathing. And then the doctor stepped forward. Not people. Not anymore. Their gas masks had melted into their faces. Their gloves fused to their arms. Their skin was gray, slick. Their movements jittery and wrong, like video footage with missing frames. And behind them, he stood, the man with no brain. Or maybe he wasn't just a man anymore. He had grown, stretched into something tall and inhuman, his body wrapped in a mass of black tendrils, shifting like spilled ink in water. His skull was smooth, faceless, but his grin was the only thing left that looked human. And then the doctor spoke, all at once, a chorus of layered voices, overlapping, repeating. Final stage initiated. The body remembers. The body will become. The straps tightened, and suddenly I felt it. Something crawling under my skin. Small, fast. Thousands of writhing little things, pushing their way through my veins, squirming into my muscles. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I could only listen. The experiment was successful. The subject lived without a brain for 7 days. And now, the man with no brain leaned forward, and in my own voice, he whispered, "Now it is your turn." I woke up, but I wasn't me anymore. I jolted upright, gasping for air. My apartment was dark, silent. The laptop was gone. The file was gone. But my body wasn't the same. My skin felt wrong, like a mask I hadn't put on properly. I stood up. My movements were too smooth, too effortless. I turned to the mirror and froze. My face, it looked like me, but it wasn't me. It was a copy, something pretending to be me. The eyes were too flat. The mouth was too perfect. The skin was seamless, like it had been placed there, like a mask. I reached up, fingers trembling, and pressed against my cheek. The skin shifted, and underneath, for just a second, I saw black, empty, waiting. And then I smiled, not because I wanted to, because it wanted me to. And as I stared at my reflection, my own voice whispered back at me. The last human experiment was a success. And now, it's time to find another. Final log entry. If you're reading this, it means I've already disappeared. It means I found you. It means you watched. And now it's your turn. Turn around. Look in the mirror. Does your reflection look right? Or is it grinning? I found a dark web database that tracks people who have been replaced. My father's name was marked pending. All right, I don't even know where to start with this, but I swear to you, everything I'm about to say is real. If you don't believe me, that's fine. I wouldn't believe me either. But if you've ever had that feeling like something in your life just doesn't add up, like there's a puzzle piece missing and no one else notices, then maybe you'll understand. It started about 2 weeks ago. I was at my buddy Sean's apartment, drinking beers and watching some dumb crime documentary on Netflix. The kind where the narrator talks all dramatic, but the actual story is just about some dude who scammed old ladies out of their retirement money. We were bored, and then Sean got that look on his face, the one that always meant we were about to do something sketchy. "Yo," he said, leaning back on the couch. "Wanna see something insane?" I already knew what he meant. Sean was one of those guys who was way too into the dark web. He had this whole setup, VPNs, a separate laptop just for browsing, even a freaking guidebook on how to stay anonymous. He swore he never did anything illegal, just lurked around. I didn't believe him. I should have said no. I should have. But I didn't. 15 minutes later, we were sitting in front of his laptop. the room lit only by the glow of the screen. He pulled up a website that looked like something from 1998. Black background, plain white text, no images. The URL was just random gibberish, and at the top of the page was a single line of text. The list, tracking the replacements. Sean clicked on it, and that's when I saw it. A database. Hundreds, maybe thousands of names, all organized in categories. Pending, replaced, missing, confirmed, eliminated. I laughed at first. What is this? Some ARG bullshit. Sean didn't say anything. He just scrolled down, his face dead serious. That's when I saw my first real name. Michael Tanner, the dude who went missing from our high school senior year, the one they never found. Next to his name, in bright red text, it said, confirmed, eliminated. I felt my stomach twist. Dude. I know, Sean muttered. Keep looking. We scrolled more. Jennifer Hensley. That was the girl from Seattle who went viral on TikTok last year for that weird, glitchy video where she kept repeating herself. People joked that she was an AI. According to this site, she was replaced. There were so many names. Some of them I didn't recognize. Others, I did. And then, Sean froze. Bro, he whispered. His face had gone pale. Bro, look at this. I leaned in, and that's when I saw it. Mark Calloway, pending my father's name. I swear, my entire body went cold. It was him. Not just the name, but his date of birth, his workplace, even his last known location, which was our damn address. What the fuck does that mean? Pending? I asked, my voice shaking. Sean didn't answer right away. He was reading something near the bottom of the page. I looked, and my heart practically stopped. A message. If you know someone marked as pending, do not alert them. Do not interact with them any differently. Do not run. If you do, you will be moved to the pending list as well. I shot up from my seat. Dude, shut that shit off. I don't want to be on this site. Sean slammed the laptop shut. For a few seconds, we just sat there in silence. Then he said something I really, really wish I hadn't heard. Man, you ever notice anything off about your dad? I wanted to say no, but the truth was, yeah, I had. I don't even remember how I got home that night. My brain was in a fog, my stomach twisted in knots. I must have walked through the front door in a daze, because the next thing I remember is standing in the kitchen, staring at my dad. He was sitting at the table, eating in complete silence. And when I say silence, I mean it. No chewing, no swallowing sounds, nothing. Just the mechanical lift of the fork to his mouth, the slow bite, then another. His eyes were locked on the TV across the room, but it wasn't even turned on, just a black screen reflecting his blank face. I should have said something, but I just stood there, watching. Then, out of nowhere, he spoke. Late night? I jumped. His voice didn't match his face. His expression hadn't changed at all, like a ventriloquist dummy, speaking without moving its lips. Yeah, I muttered, my throat suddenly dry. Dad nodded slowly. His fork hovered halfway to his mouth, frozen. Then, without another word, he resumed eating. Same slow, rhythmic motions. That's when I noticed something else. His plate. It was completely empty. He wasn't eating anything, just going through the motions, lifting a bare fork, pretending to chew, swallowing nothing, like some kind of malfunctioning robot. I backed away, heart pounding. I don't even remember what excuse I made, just that I got the hell out of there. I locked my bedroom door that night, and that was only the beginning. The night at McDonald's. A few days passed, and I tried to convince myself I was just paranoid. I told myself That stupid website was fake, that Sean was messing with me, that my dad had just been tired that night. But then came the night at McDonald's. Dad had never been big on fast food, but that night, out of nowhere, he asked if I wanted to grab something to eat. Just like that. No emotion in his voice. Just a flat, simple question. I should have said no, but something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe fear, made me say yes. We drove in silence, the kind of silence that wasn't normal. No radio, no small talk, just the sound of the tires on the pavement. When we pulled into the McDonald's parking lot, he sat there for a second, staring at the golden arches like he'd never seen them before. Then he turned to me. "Do you want a Big Mac?" It was such a simple, harmless question, but the way he asked it, it wasn't right. It sounded rehearsed, like someone trying to sound normal, but not quite getting it. Sure," I muttered. He nodded once, too slowly, and got out of the car. I watched him walk inside, and that's when I noticed something really strange. His walk. You know how people move naturally, their arms swinging a little? My dad wasn't doing that. His arms were stiff at his sides, like he forgot how to walk like a person. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to follow him in. Every instinct in my body was telling me to run. But before I could even think about it, my phone buzzed. A message from Sean. "Dude, are you home?" Something happened. I hesitated. Then, with shaking hands, I texted back. "No, I'm with my dad." The typing bubble popped up instantly, then disappeared, then popped up again. "Get out!" My blood turned to ice. I was still staring at my screen when the car door opened. I nearly jumped out of my skin as Dad slid back into the driver's seat, setting a McDonald's bag in my lap. He smiled, but it wasn't his smile. It was too wide, too perfect, like he had studied a picture of a smile and was trying to replicate it. "Eat," he said. I didn't move. His smile stayed, frozen in place, as he stared at me. Something deep inside me, the part of my brain built for survival, was screaming at me not to eat that food, not to even touch it. "I'm not really hungry," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Dad's smile didn't drop, but his eyes. Something flickered behind them. Something wrong. Then, without breaking eye contact, he reached into the bag, pulled out a burger, and took a massive bite. And I swear to God, he didn't chew. He just swallowed. A whole fucking mouthful of burger, straight down his throat like a snake. I couldn't breathe. My body locked up as he took another bite, and another, stuffing his mouth full. No chewing, just gulping it down like he was forcing the food into himself. Then he stopped, and he turned to me. A chunk of beef and bun was still lodged in his mouth, stretching his cheeks unnaturally. "Not hungry?" he asked, his voice garbled around the unchewed food. I bolted. I don't even remember making the decision. I just ripped the door handle, scrambled out of the car, and ran. I ran straight into the McDonald's, past the confused cashier, and locked myself in the bathroom. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely pull out my phone. Sean had sent another message. "Dude, they got my neighbor. She's acting weird, not like herself. You need to get away from your dad." I typed so fast, I nearly dropped my phone. What the fuck is happening? No response. I sat there, my breath coming in ragged gasps, staring at the door. At any second, I expected to hear the slow, mechanical footsteps of my father outside. I stayed in that bathroom for what felt like forever. Then finally, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Sean. "They don't like when you notice." My stomach sank. "What does that mean?" I typed back. my fingers trembling. This time, I got an instant response. But it wasn't from Sean. It was from a number I didn't recognize. And all it said was, "Your status has been updated. Mark Calloway. Replacement confirmed." The air left my lungs. Then a second message came through. "Pending. Your name." I dropped my phone. And then, a soft knock at the bathroom door. Dad's voice. "You're not hungry?" I stopped breathing. The handle began to turn. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the bathroom door. My heart was hammering so hard, I thought I might pass out. The tiny, dimly lit McDonald's restroom suddenly felt too small, too tight, like the walls were closing in. And outside was him. Or it. That thing wearing my father's face. Knock, knock. The door handle rattled, slow and deliberate. I clamped a hand over my mouth to stop myself from making a sound. My breath came in short, uneven gasps. Then, in that same unsettlingly normal voice, my father spoke again. "Come on, kiddo. We need to get home." I felt bile rise in my throat. That's what he always used to call me when I was little. Kiddo. But the way he said it now, it was empty, like he was reading a script, trying to mimic a memory that wasn't even his. I didn't answer. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours. Then, tap. A single, light tap against the door. "Open the door." I squeezed my eyes shut. "Open the door." Something was off about his voice now. It wasn't human. It was like a recording being played on a speaker, but glitching, stuttering slightly, too deep, then too high, then almost normal again. "Open the door. Open the door. Open." The knocking stopped. And then, silence. I stayed frozen in place, my entire body tense, waiting for something to happen. The McDonald's bathroom was dead quiet, except for the buzzing of the fluorescent light above me. Was he gone? I waited. 5 minutes. 10. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear anything outside. Nothing. Slowly, carefully, I reached out and gripped the lock with shaking fingers. I turned it, and then I opened the door just a crack, only to be met with a face pressed against the gap. Not his face, not human, just a distorted, stretched version of it. The skin looked too smooth, too plastic-like. The mouth was open too wide, filled with teeth that weren't teeth, just a solid row of white. His eyes, black voids, bottomless pits. I didn't even have time to scream before the door was shoved open. I stumbled backward, slipping on the tiled floor, and that thing lunged forward, arms stretching in a way human arms shouldn't be able to move. I kicked out blindly, my foot connecting with its chest. It felt wrong, like kicking a mannequin, solid, but somehow hollow. It didn't react, didn't stumble, didn't even blink. It just stood there, its mouth still stretched into that impossible grin. "Come home," it said, but the voice wasn't right. It was layered, like multiple voices speaking at once. My father's voice, but also something deeper, something wet and wrong underneath it. I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed the soap dispenser off the sink and smashed it into its face. The plastic shattered, sending foamy liquid splattering everywhere. But it barely reacted, just tilted its head slightly, like a malfunctioning animatronic, and reached for me again. I bolted, shoved past it, ran straight through the restaurant, past the confused cashier, past the other customers. I heard a voice behind me, that voice, but I didn't stop to listen. I burst out the doors into the parking lot, gasping for breath, scanning for a car, a cop, anyone. But the car was gone. Dad's car. It had vanished. I turned in circles, heart racing, but it was like it had never been there in the first place. That's when my phone buzzed again. I didn't even want to look, but I did. New message, unknown number. Running won't help. We're already inside. Inside? Inside where? I turned in a slow, shaky circle. The people in the parking lot, McDonald's employees, random customers, were just going about their business. A guy sitting on a bench was eating fries. A woman was scrolling through her phone near her car. But then, the fry guy, he turned to look at me and smiled. Not a normal smile. The same stretched, too wide smile as my father. I took a step back. Then, the woman near her car looked up. Same smile. Then the man by the drive-through window. Same smile. One by one, people started turning toward me. Their heads snapped unnaturally, all at the same time, all in the same way. And they just stood there, smiling, watching, like they were waiting for something, waiting for me. My phone buzzed again. I forced myself to look. Another message from the unknown number. Pending. Your name. Status updated to processing. I dropped my phone. And then, all at once, they started walking toward me. Not running, not rushing, just walking. But all of them, every single one, closing in. No words, no sounds, just smiling. I did the only thing I could. I ran. I ran so fast, I thought my lungs might collapse, sprinting across the parking lot, darting between cars, pushing past people. My legs burned, my vision blurred, but I didn't stop. I didn't even know where I was going. I just needed to get away. And then, as I rounded the corner of the street, I saw someone standing under the flickering streetlight, not smiling, not one of them. It was Sean. His eyes were wide, terrified. When he saw me, he didn't say a word. He just grabbed my arm and hissed, "We have to go. Now." And behind me, I could hear them, their slow, synchronized footsteps, getting closer. Sean didn't say a word. He just grabbed my arm and pulled me into a sprint. I barely had time to process what was happening. My heart was hammering in my chest, my breath coming in ragged gasps. But I ran. Behind us. They were following, not running, not yelling, just walking, all in sync. Dozens of them, their two wide smiles gleaming under the dim streetlights, eyes locked onto me like they were programmed to do nothing else. Every time I looked back, there were more people stopping mid-stride, turning their heads too fast, their grins stretching too far. Every time we passed a new block, a gas station, a restaurant, more people turned and joined them. I wanted to scream. Sean yanked me down an alleyway. We vaulted over trash bags, dodged dumpsters, leapt over a collapsed shopping cart. I could hear the sound of their footsteps, still walking, still following. No talking, no shouting, just that rhythmic, synchronized footstep, after footstep, after footstep. We burst out onto another street. I had no idea where we were anymore. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but Sean wasn't slowing down. Finally, we rounded a corner into a rundown gas station parking lot. Sean grabbed me and shoved me behind a row of vending machines. "Shut up," he hissed. "Don't move. Don't make a sound." I collapsed against the cold metal, trying to keep my breath silent. My hands were shaking. I could still feel the burn in my legs from running. My head was spinning. Sean peeked out. His face was pale, his hands curled into fists. Then, the footsteps stopped. The air was too quiet. Not a single car. No wind. The buzzing of the gas station lights sounded too loud. I could barely think over the sound of my own heartbeat. Then, Sean whispered, his voice barely audible. "They're here." I gritted my teeth, fighting the urge to look. Then I heard it. The tap, A single, slow tap against the vending machine. My entire body turned to ice. Then, a second tap, then another, and another. And then, a voice. My father's voice. "We just want to talk, kiddo." I squeezed my eyes shut. Sean gripped my wrist hard. I could feel his pulse hammering against his skin. "We know you're there." More taps, more footsteps, more people, circling us. Sean moved first. In one swift motion, he grabbed my arm and yanked me sideways, straight into the gas station. The old door banged open, the bell jingling above us. The cashier barely looked up. I slammed into the counter, breathing hard. "Please," I gasped. "Call the cops." The cashier, an older guy in a ratty uniform, just stared at me. Then he smiled. My stomach dropped. His mouth stretched too wide. His eyes darkened. Sean grabbed me and ran. We sprinted to the back of the gas station, past the coolers, past the aisles of junk food. I could hear the cashier following, not running, just walking. Sean yanked open the bathroom door, dragged me inside, and locked it behind us. I collapsed against the sink, gasping for breath. "What the fuck is happening?" Sean's hands were shaking. He dug into his jacket and pulled out his phone. The screen was glitching. The text looked warped, distorted, as if something was infecting it. Then, a new message popped up. "Unknown. Number. Your status has been updated. Your name. Processing. Imminent." My blood went cold. Sean gritted his teeth. "We don't have much time." Then, from outside the door, a knock. I jumped. Then, a second knock. Then another. Then another. Then another. Knock, 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 knockin'. Knock, 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 knock. Knock, 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 knockin'. Knock, 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 knock. Knock, 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 knock. Knock, 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 knockin'. Ok, knock, 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 knock. Knock, 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 knock. Knock, 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 knock. Like 1,000 hands slamming against the door at once. I clapped my hands over my ears. My body was shaking so hard, I thought I might fall apart. Then, silence. Dead. Fucking silence. Sean was frozen in place. His face was pale as death. Then, the doorknob started turning. Slowly, deliberately. We both watched in horror as the lock clicked open. The door inched forward, and standing there was my father. But not my father. Not human. His head tilted, his neck cracking too loud. His eyes were black holes. His mouth was too wide. His teeth stretching too long. His skin too smooth. Like plastic. Like wax. Like something pretending to be real. He didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Then slowly he raised a hand, and he pointed at me. "You need to come home, kiddo." I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. My entire body locked up. Sean shoved me backward. "Run!" I barely had time to react before Sean lunged forward, straight at my father, or the thing wearing my father's face. He tackled him, and I saw what was underneath. As Sean slammed into him, his skin ripped. Not like human skin, like fabric, like a costume. The edges of his face peeled away, and underneath, I saw the real face. A twisted, writhing mass of flesh and teeth and eyes. A mouth within a mouth within a mouth. 1,000 eyes, blinking out of sync. The smile never changed. I screamed. I ran. I didn't look back. I heard Sean yelling, heard something inhuman shrieking, but I kept running. I burst out of the gas station, straight into the street. Cars honked. People stared. I just kept going. I ran. I ran until my legs gave out. I collapsed in an alleyway, gasping for breath. Sean was gone. And then my phone buzzed. With shaking hands, I pulled it out. New message, unknown number, you can't run forever. Then a second message, a picture. I felt sick. It was a photo of me, taken right then, from behind. I spun around, my heart slamming against my ribs. But the alley was empty, completely empty, except for one thing, a single sticky note on the brick wall, written in neat, identical handwriting. Replacement imminent. I don't remember getting up. I don't remember running again. I just remember I'm not safe. Nowhere is safe, because they're everywhere. And my father? My father is gone. I don't know how long I ran. At some point, my legs gave out, and I collapsed in a crumbling parking lot behind an abandoned strip mall. My lungs felt like they were full of broken glass. My hands were shaking so badly, I couldn't even pull my phone from my pocket. I sat there, alone, staring at the cracked pavement, the dim glow of a streetlight flickering above me like a dying firefly. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I let myself cry, because I knew the truth now. My father was gone, Sean was gone, and soon I would be gone too. I could still hear the shrieking from inside the gas station, the sound of something breaking, a body hitting the floor. But I had left Sean behind. I had left him, and I knew what that meant. The last thing he ever did was buy me time, and I wasted it crying in an alley like a scared little kid. I forced myself to breathe, forced myself to push away the nausea curling in my gut, forced myself to pull my phone out of my pocket. But when I looked at the screen, my stomach dropped. The text, the whole phone, was glitching, distorting like a VHS tape with a warped reel. My lock screen was wrong. I wasn't looking at my normal wallpaper. I was looking at a live video feed, and it was me, from behind, right then, right there, like someone was standing directly behind me, filming over my shoulder. My hands clenched around the phone, my breath caught in my throat. I didn't want to turn around. I knew I couldn't turn around. But then, a soft whisper, just inches from my ear. "You're not supposed to be here." I spun around, and there was no one there, just the empty lot, the flickering streetlight, the silence. But the air felt wrong, like something had been there just seconds ago. I looked back at my phone. The screen had returned to normal. My lock screen was back, but I had a new message. Unknown number. Final update. Your name. Replacement in progress. My whole body locked up, and then, before I could even process it, my phone rang. No caller ID. I almost didn't answer, but something, maybe curiosity, maybe stupidity, made me swipe the screen and bring the phone to my ear. "Hello?" Silence. Then, a voice, but not mine, my father's. "I told you to come home, kiddo." I threw my phone. I didn't even think. I just hurled it into the pavement, watched the screen shatter, watched the light flicker and die. And then, a hand touched my shoulder. I screamed. I turned, ready to fight, ready to run, ready to do anything. But it wasn't them. It was a woman, mid-30s, wild-eyed, dirty hoodie, hands trembling. Her face was pale, her pupils blown wide, and the first thing she said to me was, "They already got you." My breath caught. "What?" She glanced around the lot, paranoid, like something was watching us. "We don't have much time." She grabbed my wrist. Her grip was ice cold. "Listen to me. You need to come with me." I yanked my arm back. "Who the hell are you?" She opened her mouth. hesitated. Then, I was pending. I went cold, her lips pressed together. Just like you. I stared at her. How do I know you're not one of them? She gave a humorless laugh. Because if I was, you'd already be dead. I swallowed hard. My head was spinning. This was insane. None of this was real. This was some fucked up nightmare, some hallucination. You don't have long, she whispered. They're already inside. I blinked. Inside what? She pointed. At me. At my chest. And for the first time, I felt it. That slow, sickening wrongness crawling under my skin. The itch at the back of my skull. The pulse behind my ribs that wasn't mine. Like something was moving inside me. Something was wearing me from the inside out. I stumbled back, gasping for air. No, that's not. She grabbed me again. It's already started. She held up a cracked phone, turned the screen toward me. It was a photo of me, but not me. It was my face, my body, my clothes. But the eyes were black. The mouth was smiling too wide. The skin was peeling at the edges. And behind that face, there was something else. Something watching me. I couldn't breathe. My chest was closing up. My vision was blurring. They're taking your place, the woman whispered. Once the process finishes, there won't be anything left of you. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip my skin off. I wanted to tear it out. It's inside me. It's inside me. I could feel it now, moving, changing me. I looked at the woman, desperate, my voice barely a whisper. How do I stop it? She stared at me. Her expression darkened. You don't. A cold wave of pure horror washed over me. But then, she handed me something. A knife. Old, rusty, stained dark. Only one way out, she said softly. I looked at her. I looked at the knife. And for the first time, I understood. I took it. My hands were steady. And then, before I could second guess it, I pressed the blade against my own skin. And I cut. I cut deep. I cut until I felt something else beneath my flesh. Something slick. Something that moved. Something that wasn't me. And then, I saw it. The thing inside. It was smiling. I screamed. And everything went black. I woke up somewhere else. A white room. No windows. No doors. A buzzing light above me. I sat up. My hands were clean. No blood. There was only one thing in front of me. A mirror. I looked into it. And the person staring back was not me. It looked like me. But the eyes were black. The mouth was too wide. And as I watched, it smiled. The lights flickered. And the last thing I heard, before the world went dark, was a voice. My voice. Whispering, replacement complete.